Y'all knew it had to happen, and honestly, I probably need to put my crash helmet on for this one. Hang on. Alright, now we should be good to go. Welcome back to Forza Horizon 5, and of course, welcome to the Ford F450. Now, before we go any further, I do want to go ahead and let y'all know that this is a preview build of Forza Horizon 5, and thus may not be fully representative of the final game, but with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Now, like many of you guys, I was absolutely mind-blown when they first announced that the F450 was going to be in Horizon 5, because, as y'all also know, I love these trucks. I love big trucks, dually trucks, diesel trucks, and those things are not necessarily something that we have always had in a Forza Horizon game, and I, for one, have always wanted to see more pickup trucks, both from a on-road and off-road driving perspective, because you can do so many things with a truck like this. You can get up to all sorts of ridiculous shenanigans with your friends, and you can also turn it into an absolute beast of a machine in terms of performance, and when you guys see what you can actually do to the customization of this thing and how much power you can extract from that 6.7 POWERSTROKE diesel, it's absolutely incredible. And not only that, but we're also going to walk through all of the engine swap options that you can have on this truck as well. Now, I want you guys to let me know in the comment section down below what you're going to do with this truck once you get your hands on Forza Horizon 5. Are you going to leave the 6.7 POWERSTROKE in it and build that, or are you going to swap the engine out, or maybe you're going to have multiples, one with the 6.7 POWERSTROKE and one with an engine swap? Are you going to leave it four-wheel drive? Are you going to swap it to a rear-wheel drive drivetrain? What exactly are you going to do with this truck, and what are your plans for it when Forza Horizon 5 launches? And also, are you going to turn it into a drift truck? Is it going to be an off-road race truck? Is it going to be sort of a open-world scout vehicle for you? There are so many different things that you can do with a truck like this, and I personally cannot wait to see what the community does with this thing once we all pick it up and we all get our hands on it. Now, walking through the engine build real quick, one of the craziest parts about this truck is the fact that from the factory, it already has basically 1,000 foot-pounds of torque. So you're already starting with a very, very, very high figure in terms of torque numbers. But the more you dive into the build, that torque number goes up rapidly. And I'm talking very, very rapidly. We're not even that far into the build, and we're already casually making over 2,200 foot-pounds of torque and over 1,000 horsepower, with those figures to climb even higher. So I will say that this thing, even though it weighs about as much as a cargo ship, it is an absolute contender in terms of performance when you build this diesel engine up. Let's hear what it sounds like. Now, when it comes to engine swap options, this truck has just about as many engine swap options as you could possibly want. There are actually 7 different engines that you can swap into this truck on top of the stock engine that you can have as well. And what I do love about this section is that you can actually go through and rev all of these engines individually and hear what they sound like. Now, I did end up cutting down the section of the video where I was choosing wheels because I spent way longer than I normally do choosing the wheels for this truck, and the reason for that is because, honestly, there are so many different wheels that you could throw on it, and it really is all up to your own personal preference, but it was actually a little tricky to choose wheels for this truck because there were so many different ones that were either really, really interestingly styled or really cool looking, or really just brought something new to the table that allowed this truck to have kind of its own unique look. And really, you could go so many different directions with the overall look of it, depending on what wheels you chose. Now, I decided to go with these because I kind of figured they looked a little bit like a street truck wheel, and really, they kind of adapt to whatever vehicle that they're on. I mean, they could look kind of street car / show car, or when you throw them on a truck like this, they actually do sort of look a little bit more like a street truck. And I figured that since I was going to attempt to drift this thing around the festival, that was going to be a wheel selection that would work well for my choice. Now, next up, we're actually going to dive into the drivetrain section, and what's cool about this is that you can actually pick between so many different types of race transmissions. You have a standard race, a race 6-speed, 7-speed, 8-speed, and 9-speed option for this particular truck, on top of the automatic standard transmission, which I believe is a 10-speed, which a lot of the newer Ford vehicles actually run. And of course, if you want to improve those shift times, you can throw a aftermarket clutch in there, depending on, of course, what your budget is. And also, I absolutely love the Baja Light Bar up top that we were able to put in. I love how it's like literally just a light cage with the individual spotlights in it. That's probably my favorite style of light bar that you could put on almost any truck, and I'm so incredibly happy to see it here on this one. I think it's the coolest looking thing. You could even put a roll cage inside the interior of the truck if you so desire, and also if you want to, there is a full race weight reduction option. Now, fitting this into a certain PI range or fitting it into a certain race class is going to be one of the most comical things I feel like you could possibly do in this game, because I can't wait to see people trying to fit this thing into classes that it really shouldn't be in and showing up to races in a freaking, 1,000 horsepower, 2,200 plus foot-pound of torque, giant dually truck. Now, I gotta admit, driving this thing for the first time was a little bit odd because it's not something that I'm used to driving. It's not a style of vehicle that I'm used to driving in a Forza Horizon game. But one of the most hilarious things is the fact that, these different cars driving around the open world, if they bump into you, they do not push you out of the way. You push them out of the way. You are an actual battering ram in this thing, and it is absolutely hilarious. Now, I opted to stick with the four-wheel drive drivetrain, even though I wanted to see how this thing would drift, because I figured in my mind, I was like, okay, if I leave the four-wheel drive drivetrain in it, the factory drivetrain, but if I also leave the factory tires on it with this much torque, I should be able to slide it fairly well. And that was both true and not true at the same time, and you guys will see what I mean by that in just a moment. Now, I wanted to go ahead and get it up here on the racetrack, and as you'll be able to tell, it definitely took me a little bit of trying to get this thing into a rhythm in terms of getting it sideways. I mean, right off the bat, I tried to initiate a slide like I would in a normal rear-wheel drive car, and it really did not work. I mean, you definitely feel the weight of this thing when you're trying to throw it around on a track, and I mean, of course, obviously, you would, because it weighs, once again, it weighs, I don't even know how much it weighs off the top of my head, but it's the equivalent of what would be considered a lot. One thing I will say for sure, though, is that it does absolutely incredible donuts when you leave the stock tires on it and leave the four-wheel drive drivetrain, and then, of course, build the power all the way up. The donuts you can do in this thing are absolutely hilarious, and really what I figured out to be the strategy for actually getting this thing to slide sideways consistently was to throw it into the corner with the handbrake really, really, really hard, and then go fully flat on the power, and instead of counter steering away from the corner, you actually steer into the corner for almost all of the slide, and then steer back out of it when you're just about at the end of the drift. It's kind of an odd feeling if you haven't done it before, but it's definitely something that if you want to slide around in something that's this big, this heavy, and four-wheel drive, it's kind of what you have to do. But I have to admit, I spent way longer than I thought I would drifting this thing around the festival circuit because it was just that much fun, and it kind of pulled me in because it was a little bit of a different challenge. It was a little bit of a different kind of experience trying to get this thing to slide in a consistent way, but as you can see, we're kind of getting the feel for it a little bit. Now, right when I first left the garage, I had no idea what I was doing, but the more I threw this thing around the track, the more of a feel I got for the thing. Now, I did continue to slide it off into the dirt right there on the hairpin, but a little bit later on, I actually started to get it a couple of times. That hairpin is super difficult in this thing because it is so tight, and this doesn't really like tight corners, as you could probably imagine, due to the size and weight of it. The long sweepers, it drifts them just fine. The tight stuff, you really have to have a very precise entry speed, otherwise it really does not like it. Now let's see if we can hit the hairpin correctly this time. We're initiating, going all the way in for it, and I decided to hang on to the handbrake a little bit longer, and I was able to pull out of it, and I was able to keep my front axle on the pavement this time instead of sending the whole truck out into the dirt, which I gotta admit is quite an improvement over the past few laps. Now, this section, super easy. Really nothing to worry about there. The only thing I was worried about there was just getting hit by, a passerby. Ended up getting a little bit of a wall tap there as well. Got a bonus for a drift tap in a, you know, F450 dually pickup truck. When is the last time you could say you've done that in a Forza Horizon game? But you're going to be able to do it right here in Horizon 5. And once again, the fact that it provides the variety and the ability to do that is insane. And also, full on was so happy that I was able to nail a Ken Block Gymkhana style four-wheel drift around that hairpin finally. Like, that made the entire drift session for me. I was like, you know what? At this point, I could just keep going around for fun, but I have met my goal. I have done what I set out to do, and that around the hairpin was exactly that. That was exactly what I set out to do, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm very... Not that I wasn't happy with it before, but I was like, yeah, I'm very happy with this session now. Now, as far as closing thoughts go, what do I think people are going to be doing with this truck over the course of Forza Horizon 5? Well, it's actually hard to say, because it could become, you know, it could become the next, like, hilarious rig that ends up being really, really good. It could end up becoming a little bit of a troll rig, or it could end up becoming just something that a lot of people enjoy driving because it's cool. It could become something that's used for, you know, little games with other vehicles that are really small. I can totally see people trying to jump small vehicles into the bed of this thing, and regardless, I definitely think that it's going to be something that we're all going to have a fun time with. But if you guys enjoyed this video in the Forza Horizon 5 preview, make sure to let me know any thoughts and opinions you might have in the comment section down below. And if you're new around here and would like to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn those notifications on, and I will see y'all next time. Talk to y'all later.